Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian-American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. On this episode of Italics, our guest is Professor Giovanni Braico. And then we go to NIAF's annual gala, Cipriani, in New York. Giovanni Braico teaches global arts and cultures in the Liberal Studies program at New York University. He spoke at the Calandra Institute on Arbëreshë Italian Albanian migration to the United States, and later joined us to visit the Arbëreshë community in Long Island to celebrate the annual Valami luncheon.
I'm from a small town in Calabria, in southern Italy, called San Demetrio Corone, where people still practice a faith, speak a language, and carry on traditions that go back over 500 years. I've spent many years living abroad, in the United States in particular, experiencing migration myself on my own skin. And that gave me new eyes, in many ways, to look at the community that shaped me. I began asking who the Arbëreshë were, who they have become, and what they might become, especially in diasporic contexts, where their identity, heritage, and language as well have often gone unnoticed or even unrecorded. Part of that work led me to the AMAR project, developed in collaboration with the Endangered Language Alliance, or ELA. That is a New York-based organization that documents languages at risk of disappearing in the New York City and tri-state area. And Arbëreshë is unfortunately one of those languages. What brought me to Inwood, in Long Island, is that this small town was once home to a predominantly Arbëreshë enclave. Many of the families here trace their roots to the same villages in Calabria. Cerzeto, San Martino di Finita, San Giacomo, and even San Benedetto Ullano. They came to New York generations ago, started from the late 19th century, and they brought something with them, a sense of identity that is neither simply Italian nor simply Albanian in the modern sense, but something older, more layered, and harder to name in many ways. Today, that community is gathering for a Vlami, that is a traditional Easter luncheon, but calling it luncheon almost undersells it. What survives here in Inwood, in a largely secular form at this point, has almost disappeared in the Arbëreshë villages of Calabria, where the ritual was at times discouraged, pushed to the margins, and even practiced in secret, at times even in cemeteries. How much of all this the Arbëreshë carried with them, and how deeply it changed through centuries of life in southern Italy before finding new forms here in North America remains very difficult to say. But perhaps some small trace of that older world still lingers quietly around the Vlami table in Long Island.
When my grandfather came to this country, he was 15 years old. He came to New Jersey first, and then he came to Inwood. I guess he found that's where all the Arbëreshë are. He was from Cerzeto, Calalizzo Cerzeto, And he met my grandmother, who was from San Martino de Fenta, and they got married in Inwood, and he belonged to the Valamis.
What are the Vlami, and how did you live this experience? How is it connected to the Arbëreshë culture? How does it preserve in any ways, like, your Arbëreshë identity and history and heritage and so on and so forth? Because people don't know what Vlami are.
Well, Valami, I was told, it means brotherhood in Arbëreshë. They all spell it differently. Valamis means brotherhood, so we're brothers. And we get together, and we have a Valamis. And it was brought over from the other country, because when they came over from Italy, that's what their fathers did. They met, I believe they met on the Monday after Easter. It's a great organization. We meet every Sunday after Easter, and we continue. We don't want to lose our Arbëreshness. I don't know the proper terminology, but we want to keep in touch with our history. Even Arbëresh people are afraid to say they're Arbëresh because they assume that nobody knows what they are. What do you mean you're Arbëresh? What is that? Well, I thought you were Italian all these years. Well, no, I'm Arbëresh. It was a funny story. I had interviewed a guy for a job that will come to work in my store. His name was Sorrow. Now, I know Sorrow is an Arbëresh name, and I know the town they come from. They come from San Giacomo. So he says, he filled out the application. I said, oh, you're a Sorrow. You're Arbëresh. He looked at me like I had two heads. Oh, you know what that means? I said, of course, I'm Arbëresh. He says, well, I never say I'm Arbëresh. I always say I'm Italian because it's too hard to explain what Arbëresh is. So I said, well, I probably know your family. I know the town you come from. And he was surprised by that. He says, I never call myself Arbëresh. Not that I'm not proud to be Arbëresh. He says, I don't want to explain to people what Arbëresh is. I only went to Italy once to visit my cousins in the town where my grandfather was, and he took us on a tour, took us to a few towns. And as I explained to Giovanni, I just had a feeling of belonging, that I really belong there. And whenever I say that, I get a little misty, because I think we're all related. Because if I go back far enough, we're cousins. An Arbëresh organization, they had a motto that I use all the time: our blood is scattered. We are one blood, our blood is scattered. And it's true, because I have cousins in England, in Australia, in Germany, and they're all my cousins.
The history of the Arbëresh is not simple. The Arbëresh are a people, a culture, and a language. And they are the descendant of Albanian-speaking communities from the Balkans who migrated to southern and insular Italy, especially during the 15th century, in the context of the Ottoman expansion towards the Balkans. Today, there are Arbëresh communities scattered across several regions of Italy, and each one a small island of culture that has somehow survived for centuries, surrounded by a world different from their own. The Arbëresh are not Albanian in the way that Albanians are Albanian. They're not Italian in the way that Italians are Italian. They occupy a third space, a hybrid identity that is ancient, layered, and often invisible in its complexity to the outside world.
One of my brothers was in the army and stationed in Italy, and he got in touch with our, what we thought was Italian family in Calabria, and that sort of started it, that he had learned Italian and went down there and said, they speak a wholly different language. And then we went back and discovered our relatives down there and the language they speak, and the towns, the local hill towns, very isolated in the Calabrian mountains. They all speak this language, they all share the heritage. This table represents people from every one of those towns in a line of towns that runs through the Calabrian Alps, so to speak. That's the culture we come from, that sort of micro culture, that small group of Italian towns that moved over here, many of whom located in the Inwood area, And that's who we're most attached to. It was largely unknown to me growing up. I always thought I was Italian. My family, I thought what we spoke was an Italian dialect. I never actually heard of Arbëreshë until I was probably out of college. But I knew there was some connection to Albania. There was the family story of service in the Albanian army to fight against the Turks and so on. But that was, the story was very garbled and never completely understood it. Now, my father was interested in learning about this for himself, and we looked into it together, and I sort of taught myself about Albanian Arbëreshë history. And what I came to find out when I looked back as a child, I grew up in an Arbëreshë community. The language that I thought was an Italian dialect was Arbëreshë. Like in junior high school, I took Italian, figuring I'd learn it and I could talk to my grandmother, who of course understood some Italian, but that's not the words that she was speaking. And when I pressed her on it, it turned out that it was Arbëreshë, and she knew what it was. And what I found out was that when my father and his siblings were growing up, their parents made a conscious decision not to teach them Arbëreshë. They didn't speak Arbëreshë in the home. So I discovered late in life that I was part of this Arbëreshë community, and that the language that they were speaking was Arbëreshë.
How did it change you in terms of like identity and heritage and roots? Like, once you found out that you were not Italian American, but you were like Arbëreshë.
At first it's a little disappointing because you're not Italian. Like, I grew up my whole life thinking I was Italian, telling people I was Italian, trying to meet Italian girls, And now all of a sudden you're not Italian, you're Arbëreshë, Albanian. What is this? But as you learn more about it, it's a very proud history. And it's very emotional for people. It's tied together by the language and the culture. With Frank Parisi, we started the Arbëreshë of New York website, and it's attracting people from all over the place. We're getting Albanians in Kosovo and Greeks, and then the Albanian communities within the United States, in New Orleans, in California, in Wisconsin.
I was very interested in genealogy, and I hired a company to do genealogy search on both sides of my family, and they did family trees back to like the 1700s, all around Truzetto and San Giacomo. Both sides of my family come from there. So then I said, I got to go visit this. I went to Truzetto and San Giacomo. I've been there 4 times. And I realized everyone there speaks Arbëreshë and Italian. The signs are in both languages. I mean, it's like a completely different world. It's not just Italy. It's like it's 2 countries. My father's side of the family is Italian. Mantovani, as you probably know, it's a very Italian name. But my mother's side of the family is Arbëreshë, which to me means our ancestry is really Albanian. So now I'm more curious. I want to know. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I said, we got to go visit Albania. We got to find out where we really came from. And even more so, I read recently that a lot of the Arbëreshë, when the Ottomans invaded, they moved to the Peloponnese Islands in a place called Morea, and then migrated to Italy. So we may be part Greek as well. I didn't know this until just a few years ago when I did this research. I thought we were Italian. I thought we were just Italian. So when I started to discover this a few years ago, and I went back to Truzetto, and I went specifically during Ferragosto to go to this religious ceremony, I saw the costumes, the red and green costumes that are very typical of Albanians and Arbëreshë, that the women were wearing during this religious festival that I went to up in the mountains. But growing up, no, I grew up thinking we were just Italian, and that my mother and her family spoke this unusual language, which I thought was Italian. I thought it was Italian.
Do you think there are many people in your situation right now that's, like are Arbëreshë actually, but they don't know about it?
I don't know, but I've also learned that there are more than 60 Arbëreshë communities in southern Italy. So how many of these people don't know the real story, right?
One of the things that we're trying to do here is investigate the traces basically? What's left of Arbëresh culture in the diasporic context of the United States? And here, a picture shared by Frank Parise shows us that during the Easter celebration time, we see cugliacci, these little breads with eggs in them. Do you have any memories of them? Can you tell us about your memories of this kind of bread?
When I was young, I don't think Easter was Easter without the bread, with the egg in it. But I did not know that this was called cugliacci. My grandmother would start with making the cugliacci, which I didn't know what it was, but it was a bread with the egg in it. And every year, then later on, my mom would make the bread with the eggs in it. And when my sibling would come to the house, she would also have one. And when my grandchildren, they would get a cugliacci with a little egg in it. So it was something that was carried on for many, many years. Now, I will admit that I don't make the bread with the egg in it anymore, but I do other things for my grandchildren. And I'm trying as best I can to carry on my Albanian heritage.
Among everything I encountered in Inwood, the stories, the food, the photographs, the music, perhaps the most quietly powerful object was a typewritten and handwritten dictionary. Arbëresh words are translated into English and often transcribed using an improvised English-based spelling to capture how they sound. Arbëresh is technically an endangered variety of Tosk, one of the major Albanian dialects. It has been passed down mostly orally, carried from mouth to ear, generation to generation, in kitchens, churches, but here in the diaspora, the thread grows thinner and thinner. The Endangered Language Alliance estimates that a language dies every few weeks somewhere in the world. Arbëresh is not gone, but it is certainly fragile. This is certainly true in Inwood, where most people remember only a few words here and there.
One of the documents that Frank Parise gave us is this improvised phonetic transcription from English to Arbëresh, and there are many words here that we see listed. So we wonder how many words, sentences, everything you remember. You told me a couple right now. How do you say milk?
Milk is chumsht.
Yes.
And I remember my mother would say to eat grapes was rush. And I learned that every time I saw an Albanian friend, I would say, si vemi.
Can you tell us a little bit about what is this Stella Albanese?
Oh, so this is interesting. Stella Albanese, this is 1897.
Mutual
This
Aid
book-
Society, right?
This is when they started the Stella Albanese organization. Because when the people came from Arbëresh towns, they were alone. They couldn't communicate properly with the Italian population. So they communicated together. And they made this book, which is incorporated. This is really an incorporation. It's the laws and the way they do things and what they would do and how they would protect each other. So that when they came here to a new country, they would have to unify. They would have to be brothers and sisters together. And they would make things like if you got sick, if you had a problem where the American maybe wouldn't take care of you, they would send you back home. But they would have a way to pay for you.
So it was a micro-government, basically.
Yeah, it was like they would have insurance that they would be okay. If you came here as a young guy and for some reason you got sick, as a group, this money that you pay dues every year, this book here has in there my grandfather's dues from 1929 to 1940, $1 every month. But if you didn't pay every month, you're out.
You're out.
And that's what it's all about, is somebody dies, these people didn't have money to pay for funeral.
Health insurance they were offered. Some
Health
form
insurance,
of health insurance.
funerals,
Yeah.
sick,
Yeah.
medical.
If you were unemployed for a certain amount of time,
They would help
they
you.
would cover you up, basically.
It's like having friends that have a little bit of money behind them,
But if I remember well, I read in here that you had to speak the language.
Yeah.
Only if you spoke
If you
Arbëresh.
spoke Arbëresh, you could. If you can't speak Arbëresh, you can't join.
You cannot join. So in the 50s they stopped.
1957. In 1957, basta.
Do you know why?
Because in 1957, everybody was American.
Exactly.
1960, you could take an airplane.
Exactly.
There was no more. All these people came on a ship.
Okay.
I came on a ship,
You came on a ship as well.
yeah, con Frederica, la nave, con 1963. Arriva la Queen Frederica. Se allora tu corrisna that viages.
Se il viaggio.
I never seen the ocean, perché it's not the fondo.
Sa durarti il viaggio? 2 settimane?
7 giorni,
7 giorni? E in sempre a tie poste?
sono riposto. Is in a motor,
E prana er te?
dietro motor, in volà, e mamma.
E kur arvut tu, ishin altri Arbëresh, oppure...
Ishin solo gjithaj bresh.
Ishin gjithë Arbëresh tu, kur arvut ju?
Kur arron këtu, mos njërin në fishin italian.
Fisin vetë Arbëresh.
Fishin solo aj bresh. U fjas aj bresh në shtëpi, me mamën, me të vëllezi, gjendja se që janë këtu, në fjasin aj bresh, në ngërdin, në linguan.
E harron.
E harrohen.
Però është incredibile, se ancora e mban mend. Ti si ndiket kur fjet Arbëresh, kur në fjas Arbëresh, ti si ndiket?
Është facile.
Është facile, ma porta memorie, bring memories.
Ndifem like the world is here.
When you speak Arbëresh, you feel like the world is here.
Yeah.
This is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard.
For the Arbëresh, this fragile world is sometimes everything. A world carried in language, memory, and belonging, felt in different ways across the diaspora.
The National Italian American Foundation's annual New York Gala this year paid tribute to distinguished Italian and Italian American leaders, showcasing the very best of Italian cuisine while celebrating Lombardy as NIAF's 2026 Region of Honor.
For 50 years, the National Italian American Foundation has stood as a beacon of heritage, advocacy, and pride. From its humble beginnings in 1975, NIAF has honored the past, shaped the present, and continues to inspire the future of Italian Americans in the United States.
I'm delighted to welcome you to the National Italian American Foundation 2026 New York Gala. For the past 13 years, I've had the honor to serve as the Gala chairman for this event that has become very dear to my heart. Every year, I love to see how the Italian American community in New York City comes out and supports NIAF and our honorees.
Your collective presence speaks volumes. It reflects the strength of relationship between the United States and Italy, a relationship that transcends the inevitable ebbs and flows of government and rests instead on something far more endearing: the deep affection of nearly 20 million Americans of Italian heritage and the love that we have for both nations.
For his academic achievement, his journalistic accomplishments, and his steadfast championing of NIAF, we have decided to make Carlo Alberto the first recipient of NIAF's Academic Friendship Medal, named for A. Bartlett Giamatti, the former president of Yale University.
Wow, what a night. Thank you so much. I don't have so many words to express what I'm feeling tonight. I know that New York is a city where everything can happen, and tonight happened something very special for me.
The National Italian American Foundation is proud to honor Frank Rocco with the NIAF de Roma Special Achievement Award in Business and Hospitality.
Growing up in an Italian family, I learned respect, manners, loyalty, perseverance, and love. I also feel like the Italian culture instinctively positions you for hospitality.
The National Italian American Foundation is proud to honor James Pitaro with the NIAF de Roma Special Achievement Award in Sports and Entertainment Business.
I am truly honored to receive this recognition tonight. Growing up Italian was always a point of pride for me. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by best friends who were Italian Americans.
The National Italian American Foundation is proud to honor Alphonse D'Amato with the NIAF de Roma Special Achievement Award in Public Service.
It's a great honor to be here with you. I've received a number of awards and recognition over the years. But I must say, because this one comes from an organization that supports and promotes and protects the Italian heritage, a heritage that has been at the core of any success that I've had in my life. As the first Italian-American United States Senator from New York, I've always been very proud of those roots.
The National Italian American Foundation is proud to honor Linda Stacy with the NIAF de Roma Special Achievement Award in Literature.
In school, we learn nothing about how our Italian ancestors fought their way out of bondage with a lot of blood, sweat, and many, many tears.
The National Italian American Foundation is proud to honor Tom Cox with the NIAF de Roma Special Achievement Award in Business.
I'm deeply grateful for NIAF partnership and truly honored to receive this award. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.